Hello and welcome to Late Listening. I'm your host, Chris Crescent, and today I want to talk about a lesser known record. That is Failure's Magnified. This is Failure's second record. It was released on March 8th, 1994, and today I'm going to be comparing the 2022 remaster with the original 1994 record. So join me. A good way to think about this 2022 remaster is if you look inside of the original 1994 album, you can see this picture of Ken Andrews and Greg Edwards, the singer, guitarist, and bassist respectively. Actually multi-instrumentalist, because actually Greg Edwards plays drums and he does a lot of things. But this picture of them is sort of weirdly distorted, kind of smashed, because they had to fit it in a square, like CD jacket shape. And then if you look at the 2022 remaster, you can see here on the inside there's some different photos, and the top one is actually the original photo where it's at its normal aspect ratio. And I think of this 2022 remaster as the sort of original, wider, deeper, more true version of this album. The 1994 record is very flat, and it's very, I'm not a producer or a musician really, but the sound really doesn't have any depth to it, if I can say that. Yes, I keep my CDs in plastic sleeves because there's just so many of them that I can't. There's no way that I can keep them in their original cases. Although the 2022 remaster I have it comes in kind of a cardboard case. So I'll show off the art here. Let's take a look at the 1994 original first. Weirdly, this one actually has different artwork depending on whether you're looking at the non-US releases like Australia and Japan and Europe. It has a different background. But in the US, the artwork is this sort of a sunrise, I assume, sunrise at the beach with this crazy looking frog sculpture. The frog that was created by Bruce Schwartz. The US cassette actually has a different background on it as well. They all have different backgrounds for some reason. I'm not sure. But then if you compare the 1994 record and the 2022 re-release, the color is quite different. Actually, looking at it now, is it a different photograph? Maybe it's actually different. Oh, let's see here. Art direction, B Bland Incorporated. Still Bruce Schwartz doing the frog sculpture. Cover photography and design is Glenn Wexler. How about the original here? Photo of frog, Glenn Wexler. I'm not sure. This is kind of a mystery to me. What I want to say first is that the 2022 remix and remaster is really worth the money because, as I mentioned, it has a lot of depth, and you can really hear all of the instruments. You can hear like the effects on the guitar. You can hear the drums absolutely crystal clear. Everything is separated, but it all fits together very organically. Ken Andrews' voice is much more prominent in terms of, like, he's not very like forward in the mix, but like you can hear his voice really clearly. You can hear sometimes there's effects on his voice that I didn't really notice on the original album, which I listened to many, many times. It's almost like all of this kind of dirt and grime has been cleared away, and it just has this like polished sheen to it in a good way. We're still talking about 90s alternative rock. We're still talking about sort of grunge or post-grunge or whatever you want to call it. I don't do genre, but it's so beautiful in its ugliness. It's so clear in its distortion. Ken Andrews was able to get back the master tapes from the record label after, because nobody cared about Failure anymore. And he released this statement saying pretty much everything that was out there, like, on iTunes or on like Spotify or whatever, was 16-bit quality taken from the original, like the original CD. He was able to take the original analog masters and bring up the sound quality and really, pay attention to every track. I think it's really worth hearing this. Ken Andrews is an incredible guy. He's not only an amazing musician, but he's a great producer, and he's produced a lot of records. He has a lot of amazing side projects and projects. I think I'm going to do a video just on Ken Andrews because I'm a big fan of that guy. So now let me do a little review of Magnified. I just want to talk about this record because nobody really talks about this record. Failure is pretty much known for just the album Fantastic Planet. Oops, what do we have here? I've got the promo. Fell out of the Fantastic Planet. Came out in 1996 and didn't make much of a splash at the time, but it has since gone on to achieve somewhat of notoriety, and a lot of 90s rock fans will tell you that this is a wonderful album that most people sleep on. But I feel like Magnified is an interesting record because it's really where Failure first started to achieve their sound. Their sound that they still continue to this day, although it has evolved significantly. This album very much contains elements from their first record, Comfort, their 1992 debut, Comfort. That was kind of a mid-tempo, very dark, very droning, kind of an interesting record. A lot of people don't like this album, and I actually like it a lot, but it's weird. It's very, very weird. And you can hear a little bit of this kind of sound and some of the elements on here, the extreme distortion, the dissonance, and the kind of dirge-like quality of some of the songs. Elements of that factor into Magnified. Another example of that kind of the Comfort sound, I think, is like the first track, Let It Drip. That's fully Ken Andrews, and I really like that song because it's a very Ken Andrews song. It's short, it's tight, it's weird. He actually even puts some distortion on his voice and makes it, I wouldn't say like abrasive, but it's not that pleasant to listen to. It's kind of like you're listening through all of this almost like static. I don't know. I love that man. On Comfort, the songs are much more mid-tempo, and they're kind of slowed down, they're menacing and dark. Whereas this record, really, it picks up, it's a lot more catchy, even though there's the dissonant chords and there's that kind of strange, you have a kind of a strange feeling when you're listening to it, but it's also, the tempos are much faster, it's more propulsive. Whereas on Comfort, everything is kind of pulled back, and it sits in its gloom. Also, you can hear elements of Fantastic Planet as well. There are Siegs. There are sort of very strange instrumentation where they use a lot of weird chords and weird dissonant notes, and also the songs start to open up and they really start to become kind of epic at times, which is very much a hallmark of Fantastic Planet. Like at the end of the song Magnified, there's like this silence of a few seconds or some seconds. And then all of a sudden, this kind of weird, kind of backwards electronic-y sound comes in, and you hear somebody say, yeah. And then this like really cool acoustic guitar plays for like almost a minute and a half. And it's not listed on this album, it's not part of the song Magnified. It's just this really cool Sieg that they just decided to slip in there, I guess at the halfway point, because Magnified is the fifth song. Also, the eighth track, Wet Gravity, after about the 3-minute mark, it goes completely bonkers, and it has this weird like electronic drone that goes on well past 5 minutes, I think. And that's another Sieg. I think of it as a Sieg. And so they're really setting up that kind of, the Siegs that they would do on Fantastic Planet, and of course on their 2015 record, The Heart is a Monster. But I love the fact that Failure has these Siegs, and I don't really know why they decided to do that. They've never really talked about that to my knowledge, but I love the fact that they kind of break up their records into these different pieces with these strange, soundscapes in between. It's just such a cool little thing about the band. On Comfort, they had an idea of what their sound could be, but they weren't so confident, I think, as musicians, as Ken Andrews as a singer, as songwriters, especially. And then on Magnified, they ditched the producer and they said, we're going to produce this ourselves. We're going to just do exactly what we want to do. And I think this is the Failure sound. It has a little bit from Comfort. It's going toward Fantastic Planet, but this is kind of the definitive Failure record, even though it's very overlooked and a lot of people have never even heard of this. A lot of people have never heard of Failure, but especially if you know Failure, I think some people go back to this record, but most people would listen to Fantastic Planet. Some people would listen to Magnified, a few would listen to Comfort, but it's a largely overlooked record for sure. Some of the lyrics on this album are kind of bonkers. Like for example, the song Moth. This is like, I don't really know, like it oscillates between like absolutely absurd and kind of terrible in an awesome way, and like really cool, actually really cool lyrics. So for example, on the song Moth, verse 1, he says, "Sometimes pear-shaped women melt down," which is like, why are you picking on pear-shaped women, right? But then it's like onto concrete. So he has like the image of like an actual pear-shaped woman like melting down onto concrete. And he says, "Splashing sun and sidewalk insects down by these feet." So we're kind of already seeing that this narrator has a very odd view of reality or the world around him. He's maybe kind of trapped in a bit of a surreal state of mind. And then the next line I absolutely love, which is, "Sometimes puddles terrify me as they gaze up." That's a really, really cool line. And I feel like that's close to poetry right there. "Sometimes puddles terrify me as they gaze up." And then he says, "Scrap of paper floating crumpled. I can't pick up. Goodbye." I mean, obviously he's walking on a street, and there's paper rolling by, and he wants to pick it up, I guess. Like he wants to pick up this crumpled piece of paper. That he's a guy that collects trash. He's curious about what is on this piece of paper. I'm not sure, but and then the chorus. "No one's ever gonna find out from this shut mouth. Just be sure to keep these eyes closed. They can read those." So it's this is tinfoil hat territory where he's like, just be sure to keep your eyes closed because they can read your eyes. Paranoid. And then in verse 2 he goes, "Sometimes people use their sound holes pointed at me." So seems to be a sensitive guy. Maybe he's easily overwhelmed by the world, by people around him. The sound holes are shouting, and sound is coming at him somehow. So he doesn't like crowds. He doesn't like noise. He doesn't like people talking at him, which I can understand. "Rusty winds groaning down alleys blow right past me. Sometimes pipes creaking inside here know me too well. Flesh and steel I had carved up for a farewell. Too late." And we're thinking, what? Thoughts of suicide, thoughts of absolute, broken derangement. He's really having a hard time. These lyrics were written by Greg Edwards, who I'm not exactly sure of the timeline of everything about Failure. I love Failure dearly, but I don't know exactly all of the timeline. But Greg Edwards had a heroin addiction, and he used drugs frequently, and he was kind of a hardcore guy. And you can hear a lot of that on Fantastic Planet. The song "Stuck on You" is a heroin ballad, as they say. But I feel like he was kind of chronicling this struggle that either he directly was having, or he can sympathize with these kind of paranoid characters who are having a really hard time, and are not in a sober, sane state of mind. And that kind of adds a nice dimension to the music. The music is really awesome. You don't have to really listen to the lyrics. Of course, if you listen to lyrics about pear-shaped women melting down onto concrete, you might feel kind of strange. You might skip the song or turn off the record. But this kind of weird character or this weird narrator kind of adds a whole new dimension to the song. And I just really like that. I like that strange world, I guess. Probably my favorite lyrics on this album come from the song "Frogs," which of course I assume the cover art is a reference to this song. I really, really love this song. The words and the music are by Andrews and Edwards both, so it's unclear who wrote these lyrics, but I love this. He says, "Sent away to have my head checked, no more playing in the sand." And I thought that was really clever because this song is about insanity. It's about a narrator with a mental disorder, perhaps, who's either going to a mental institution or he's going to be committed. Maybe he's committing himself. But I love this line because So he was sent away to, be diagnosed. No more playing in the sand. There's actually a very interesting kind of dual meaning to this, because on the one hand, no more playing in the sand is like the innocence of childhood and the early days. Oh, you used to be carefree and now you're not anymore. Now you're suffering. But also, it can be burying one's head in the sand. You have to face reality now. You can't just live in your fantasy world. You can't hide from the world. And I just thought that was really, really clever. Sent away to have my head checked. No more playing in the sand. Frogs are leaping off my brainstem. They don't seem to understand. I read somewhere, someone online was saying, like, this song's about evolution, but I didn't really take it that way. I took it as more of a, like, hallucination. If you're deep into drugs, and if you're really strung out, you start to hallucinate, and you start to perceive things that are not there, either visually or audibly, or just in your kind of subconscious perception. And frogs are leaping off my brainstem. They don't seem to understand. Seems a lot like someone who is coming unhinged to me. Anyway, roadside blurs against a big bus, faces slouched against the glass. I am headed for a cleansing in a room without a bath. And it's detox. I assume that's a detox. He's on a bus. He's going to get clean. And then the chorus, didn't it seem kind of silly, the way the doctors carried on so uptight? It's not so bad being so distant. I can live inside the gap. Frogs are hopping off my brainstem, so excited to be sane. I love it when lyrics don't rhyme. I don't know if you've ever heard lyrics that don't rhyme. I like it, like Deftones, or I can't think of any examples at the moment, but like I just really like it when the artist takes a risk and is like, you know what, I'm not gonna make this rhyme, and that's kind of cool. And then the chorus with the bridge, didn't it seem kind of silly the way the doctors carried on so? Now that I've become a monster to them, have to keep their fear turned on all night long. And so I assume he's taking revenge on the doctors that he perceives are, either torturing him or he has a grudge. He has an axe to grind. Yeah, it's just a really cool little portrait. And the thing about these songs is, the lyrics are kind of sometimes nonsense. They're sometimes don't really have a lot to them, but then you can kind of think with the sonic landscape, you can kind of really imagine this little story. And I love that about Failure. I love the fact that you can just sit back in that kind of distorted and dissonant world and listen to these strange lyrics and sort of just, it kind of paints this nice picture in your mind. Track 3 is Bernie, which is a weird song that I used to skip it when I was young, and I would listen to this album. I would often skip this song, but then sometimes it would like stick in my head, as many Failure songs do, and I found myself going back to it, and I really liked the weird acoustic guitar. I feel like they would do a lot more of that on Fantastic Planet. It's a strange song that I assume is about going to get drugs from someone named Bernie. Because they say Bernie's got the way to feel good times. She lives on the way to the park. All we've got to do is just drop by. We don't have to wait until dark. And some of the lyrics are kind of terrible, like screaming tires through the sunshine, told the cripple he looks blind, caught the rats in the manhole, beat them all the way back home. What the fuck does that mean? I don't know. But, it's fine. It's something to sing while the music is sort of doing its madness. The songs Magnified and Wonderful Life and Undone create a really nice run of songs here. And Wet Gravity as well. So Magnified, Wonderful Life, Undone, Wet Gravity. Really great run. I think these songs are really, really solid. And I feel like Failure... I feel like Undone could have been a single and could have been, I don't know if it would have been a hit in the 90s, but I feel like it would have been, maybe a minor hit on alternative rock radio, because Undone is a really, really catchy song. And it used to really stick in my head, that shoegaze guitar, the really cool intro, and then it's like that shoegaze guitar. It's really catchy. My favorite song on here is probably Wonderful Life. It's the most poppy song, but it's just, I don't know, it really gets me. The way that it builds and the way that the bridge kind of just takes it to the next level. But Magnified has that really cool bass that I love. Like I love the bass guitar on Magnified. It sounds so weird, and the riff is so awesome. Wonderful Life is again dealing with a little bit of insanity. It's not about his prescription brain deprived of pills that keep it sane. He told himself he could go it alone. See him plead with the unplugged phone. That's some insanity right there. But it seems to be about comfort. Not to reference Failure's first record, Comfort, but sleep in the softest bed, eat everything you need, never ask anyone for anything at all. But then he's thinking about these terrible sequences, like the boy who's been murdered and thrown in the dumpster behind the mall, or the woman who is on the freeway and she crashes into the brake lights. It's this extreme dichotomy between these horrors that are happening and the comfort that we all seek. And I wonder if he's finding some kind of sick joy in watching these horrors while he's sort of wishing for his comfort and staying in bed. And I just really love the chorus of that. I'm going down to the wonderful life. I'm going down inside a satellite. Of course, many years later, Ken Andrews would release a solo record called Songs from the Lost Satellite, which is an absolutely great record. I don't have it here to show you, but I have it somewhere. It's a phenomenal record. I love the fact that he keeps the satellite imagery in the space rock. Although I don't know what the hell is space rock. I don't know what that means. Like, do you know why is Failure space rock? Aren't they post grunge? Why do they get a pass and like other post grunge bands don't get a pass? I don't know. Yeah, this is just the curmudgeon comes out. Wet Gravity. Let's see. Some of the coolest like distortion on the record. I felt like Wet Gravity kind of has this weird quality where they were going in terms of the later music that they did after they reunited and they did The Heart is a Monster. I feel like Wet Gravity hints at that direction. It's not really like catchy. It's just so expansive. It's so intense. And actually, I love the bass on this song as well. I love the bass on Wet Gravity. It's really, really it sounds so cool. The last couple songs, Empty Friend. Yeah, it's a pretty solid song. It's one of the weaker ones on the record, but it's okay. I feel like Empty Friend is the best example of like the Comfort sound and the Fantastic Planet sound like together, because it kind of has the dissonance and the weirdness of Comfort, but then it also has like the guitar sound is very similar to what they would do on Fantastic Planet. And then Small Crimes. Small Crimes actually reminded me of the song I Can See Houses. It has kind of a similar quality somehow in my mind. It's a slow burn kind of album closer that Failure's so good at. And it leaves you kind of feeling unsettled as the album winds to a close. All right, I think that's enough jabber for today. I just wanted to compare the 1994 record with the 2022 remaster, and I really want to recommend, if you like Failure, if you used to listen to Failure, if you've never heard Failure before, please check out Magnified, especially the 2022 remaster. Some years ago they had an LP box set, but even though that's long out of print, you can actually find their records directly from their website or Bandcamp if you want the digital version. But I would highly recommend checking out the remasters of all of their records, especially Magnified, because it just sounds much, much better, much deeper sound, much richer sound than the original 1994 record. So, as always, I'd like to know what you think about Failure. I'd like to know, did you hear the new remaster? Did you love the old record? Have you never heard them before? Some people are just discovering them fairly recently, and if you're one of those, also I'd like to know what you think about it. So, give me a comment. I'd love to know anything. And as always, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you again.